In 1953, when Iran tried to keep its own oil, America removed its government. In 2003, when Iraq tried to sell oil in euros, America invaded. In 2011, when Libya tried to build a gold-backed currency in oil trade, America moved to destroy it. In 2026, when Venezuela dared to keep control of its oil, America removed its leader. Now, 72 years later, American missiles are once again tearing Iran apart piece by piece. The actors have changed, the script has not. We are going to follow the one trail that has always led to the truth when America goes to war. We are going to follow the oil. In 1953, a series of events unfolded in Iran that would change its entire future forever. The United States of America, the self-declared champion of democracy, secretly masterminded a coup. Not against a dictator, not against a terrorist, not against a threat to anyone's safety. Against a man who had been democratically elected by his own people. A man who wore simple suits, spoke softly and had one vision, that Iran's oil should belong to Iran. His name was Mosaddegh. He was a lawyer, a nationalist, a man who wept openly in parliament because he believed in his country that deeply. The Iranian people loved him. They called him Mosaddegh, the man who dared to say out loud what every Iranian felt in their heart. This oil beneath our feet, it belongs to us. Not to Britain, not to America, to Iran. He nationalized Iran's oil industry in 1951. He threw out Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, which would later become BP. That had been pumping Iranian oil for decades while Iranians lived in poverty. Washington and London panicked. Within 2 years, in an operation secretly codenamed Operation Ajax, the CIA, working with British intelligence, flooded Tehran with money, hired mobs, bribed military officers, and brought the government of a sovereign democratic nation crashing down. Mosaddegh was arrested in his own home. He was put on trial. He spent the rest of his life under house arrest, never free again. And in his place, a king, Shah Mohammad Raza Pahlavi, friendly to Western oil companies, willing to deal in dollars, willing to keep the pipelines flowing westward. Now, 72 years later, as American missiles once again streak across Iranian skies, I want you to hold that story in your mind. Because nothing that is happening today will make sense until you understand what happened in 1953. Iran sits on approximately 157 billion barrels of proven oil reserves. That makes it the fourth largest in the entire world. But that is not even the most important number. What matters is who Iran is selling that oil to. And the answer to that question explains everything happening right now. Iran's biggest oil customer is China. Not Europe, not India, it's China. China has been purchasing Iranian oil at discounted rates, sometimes $10 to $15 per barrel below market price, bypassing Western sanctions using shadow tankers, fake documentation, and most importantly, they are doing these deals not in US dollars but Chinese yuan. Now stop for a moment. Because this is the nerve that when touched makes Washington reach for its military playbook. Since 1974, virtually all global oil trade has been conducted in US dollars. Every country in the world that needs oil has to first buy US dollars. This creates an artificial permanent demand for American currency, allowing the US to print money, borrow endlessly, and maintain global economic dominance. When Iran sells oil to China in yuan, when China pays in yuan, it is a direct attack on the petrodollar system. And to Donald Trump, a man who sees every global transaction through the lens of American economic power, this is an act of war. Trump has been consistent about one thing throughout his political career. The US dollar must remain the world's reserve currency. He has imposed tariffs on China. He has threatened countries that explore trading outside the dollar. When Brazil and Russia began discussing a BRICS alternative currency, Trump threatened 100% tariffs. His message to the world has been clear. You trade in dollars or you to pay a price. Now enter Iran, which has been not only selling oil in yuan to China but actively helping China build an alternative financial pipeline that bypasses American banking systems entirely. To Trump, Iran is not just a nuclear threat. Iran is a financial weapon pointed at the dollar. And China, America's greatest economic rival, is the one pulling the trigger. Attacking Iran is not just about Middle East security, it is about sending a message to Beijing. The dollar is not optional. If this feels familiar, it should. Because America has played this exact game before multiple times. In 2003, America launched a full-scale military invasion of Iraq, toppling Saddam Hussein's government. The official reason? Weapons of mass destruction. None were ever found. What was found? The world's fifth largest oil reserves. And in the months before the invasion, Saddam Hussein had announced he was switching Iraq's oil sales from dollars to euros. Within a year of the invasion, Iraq's oil was back on the dollar. In 2011, the United States and its NATO allies launched airstrikes on Libya, toppling Gaddafi's government and leaving the country in a state of complete collapse. Gaddafi's sin was proposing a gold-backed African currency called dinar to replace the dollar in African oil trade. Hillary Clinton's own emails, later made public, referenced this threat directly. Gaddafi was dead within months. In 2026, the United States military captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro on drug trafficking charges, a move that drew global attention to Venezuela, a country that happens to sit on the world's largest proven oil reserves. Trump openly admitted that the goal was access to Venezuela's vast oil wealth. Sanctions, regime change efforts. The playbook ran on schedule. The pattern is not a conspiracy theory. It is documented, it is consistent, and it is happening again, this time with Iran. Now let us address the question many of you are asking: why is Israel joining the United States in this attack? The answer exists on two levels. On the surface level, Israel has genuinely security concerns about Iran. Iran funds Hezbollah and Hamas. Iran has repeatedly called for the elimination of the Israeli state. Iran's nuclear program poses an existential threat to a country the size of New Jersey. Israel has wanted to strike Iran's nuclear infrastructure for years. They had been asking Washington for a green light, and Trump gave it. But go one level deeper. Israel's long-term security depends on American military and economic supremacy in the Middle East. A strong Iran, one that is economically connected to China, selling oil freely, funding proxy armies, is an Iran that can project power against Israel indefinitely. The partnership makes perfect sense. America wants Iran's oil out of Chinese hands and back into the dollar system. Israel wants Iran's military capability destroyed. Both get what they want from the same operation. Turn on the news and you will hear the official reasons. Nuclear weapons, terrorism, regional stability, human rights, etc. These are not entirely false. Iran's nuclear program has long been at the center of fears over potential weapons development. Iran does support militant groups. The Iranian government is not a democracy. But here is the thing about these justifications. They have existed for decades. Iran's nuclear program has been a concern since 1990s. Iran has funded Hezbollah since the 1980s. The Islamic Republic has suppressed its people since 1979. None of that triggered a direct American military strike until now. What changed now? The scale of the Iran-China oil relationship changed. In 2020, Iran and China signed a 25-year cooperation agreement worth $400 billion, covering oil, infrastructure, and military cooperation. Iranian oil exports to China hit record high in 2023 and 2024, even under sanctions. The petrodollar bypass was no longer theoretical, it was operational. The nuclear threat is the reason they put on the press release. The oil and the dollar is the reason they went to war. History always has a lesson, and here is what it's telling us now. Regime change will be the ultimate goal. Not just degrading Iran's military, the end game is a government in Tehran that is friendly to Western oil interests and willing to trade in dollars. US President Donald Trump has demanded Iran's unconditional surrender. He said the US and allies would make an Iran economically bigger, better, and stronger than ever before after it picked acceptable new leadership. China will not stay quiet. Iran is a part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, a key node in China's energy security. Expect Beijing to escalate its diplomatic and economic support for Iran and possibly coordinate with Russia. The dollar war will intensify. More BRICS nations will now watch what happens to Iran and make their own calculations. Does America's financial enforcement arm extend to military force? The answer being demonstrated right now is yes. Oil prices will rise further. Any disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow choke point through which 20% of the world's oil passes, sends shockwaves through every economy on Earth. The Strait of Hormuz is virtually shut. Tanker traffic has collapsed. And if this goes on for weeks, analysts warn we could be looking at $120, even $200 a barrel. The ordinary people of Iran will suffer most. The ordinary people of America will pay more at the pump. And somewhere in boardroom, all executives and defense contractors will be counting their profits. And today, as Iran supplies oil to China in yuan, as China builds an alternative to the dollar system, as the petrodollar faces its most serious challenges in 50 years, America has once again reached for its military. The reasons they give you will be complicated. The reason underneath is very simple. Oil, power, and the dollar. The flags change, the leaders change, but the game never does. It all comes back to oil, power, and the dollar. Do your own research, question every official reason, and ask yourself who profits. If this video made you think, hit subscribe. Thank you for watching.